The red sun of Kepler 442b cast long shadows across the dig site as Dr. Zixtal carefully brushed sand away from another strange symbol. The Zephyrian archaeologist had been working on this planet for 3 years now, but every day brought new mysteries. His forearms moved with practiced precision as he documented each marking with his scanner. "Professor, you need to see this," called out his assistant, Krina, from across the excavation area. Her voice carried excitement that made Zixtal's scales shimmer with anticipation. The dig site sprawled across several kilometers of desert, but this particular section had yielded the most interesting finds. Massive stone blocks arranged in perfect geometric patterns stretched as far as the eye could see. Each block weighed thousands of tons, yet they fit together so precisely that not even a blade of grass could slip between them. Zixtal made his way over to where Krina stood beside a newly uncovered wall. The surface was covered in symbols that seemed to flow across the stone like frozen liquid. But these symbols were different from anything they had found before. "Look at this pattern," Krina said, pointing to a section of the wall. "The mathematical progression here follows principles that our best scientists only discovered 50 years ago. But according to our dating, this wall is over 50,000 years old." Zixtal studied the symbols through his magnifying lens. His species had been studying mathematics for over 10,000 years, but these equations were elegant in a way that made their own work seem clumsy. The beings who created this understood concepts that the Galactic Confederation was only beginning to explore. "Send this data to the consortium immediately," Zixtal instructed. "This changes everything we thought we knew about the ancients." For as long as any species could remember, the galaxy had been filled with remnants of an advanced civilization. Everyone called them the Ancients or the First Ones. Scattered across thousands of worlds were ruins, artifacts, and technologies that no current species could fully understand or replicate. The Ancients had left behind the blueprints for faster-than-light travel. Every species in the galaxy used their designs, though none understood exactly how they worked. Energy weapons, advanced computers, even the basic principles of genetic engineering, all of it came from studying ancient artifacts. Most scholars believed the ancients had transcended physical existence millions of years ago. They were thought to be godlike beings who had moved beyond the need for physical bodies or material possessions. The ruins scattered across the galaxy were just the leftovers from their time in this reality. But the evidence here on Kepler 442b told a different story. The carbon dating was consistent across the entire site. Everything was around 50,000 years old. That was far too recent for the mythical First Ones. "Sir, we have another problem," said Jextor, the team's technology specialist. He was standing beside one of the ancient devices they had excavated. The crystalline structure hummed with energy, though no one understood how it generated power. "What kind of problem?" Zixtal asked, though he was beginning to suspect he did not. "Want to know the answer? This device, when it's been trying to communicate with our equipment, our computers keep receiving transmission attempts, but we cannot decode them. The strange thing is, the mathematical base seems familiar somehow." Zixtal felt his blood run cold. Ancient devices were supposed to be dormant. They had been studying them for centuries, and none had ever shown signs of active functionality. The fact that this one was attempting communication suggested something significant. "Have you identified the source of the transmissions?" "That's just it, sir. The signals are not coming from this device alone. Our long-range sensors are detecting similar transmissions from ancient sites across the galaxy. It's like they're all trying to wake up at the same time." The implication sent a chill through the entire research team. If ancient technology was activating across the galaxy, what did that mean? Were the ancients returning? Had something triggered their dormant systems? Zixtal ordered his team to document everything and prepare their findings for immediate transmission to the Galactic Confederation. The Council of Species needed to know about this development. If the ancients were truly returning, every civilization in the galaxy would be affected. As the team worked through the night, more discoveries emerged. Deep beneath the main structure, they found chambers filled with crystalline storage devices. When Jexator's equipment scanned them, the readings were extraordinary. Each crystal contained more information than entire planetary databases. "Sir, "I think I've found something," announced Dr. Vel Anth, the team's xenobiologist. She was examining samples taken from the deepest parts of the dig site. "These genetic traces, they don't match any known species in our databases." "Unknown species?" Zixtal joined her at the analysis station. "You mean the ancients?" "That's what I thought at first. But the genetic structure is strange. It's carbon-based, like many current species. But the DNA patterns are unlike anything we've seen. It's almost primitive in some ways, yet incredibly robust." Zixtal studied the data displayed on her screen. The genetic code was indeed unusual. Most advanced species had highly refined genetic structures, the result of millions of years of evolution and sometimes genetic modification. But these samples showed genetic diversity and redundancy that suggested a much younger species. "How old are these samples?" "That's the strangest part. They're the same age as everything else here, about 50,000 years. But this genetic structure suggests a species that evolved much more recently than that." The mysteries were piling up faster than the team could solve them. Ancient ruins that were too young to be from the mythical first ones, genetic samples from an unknown species, technology that was attempting to communicate across the galaxy. None of it fit with what they thought they knew about galactic history. 3. Days later, a priority message arrived from the Confederation Council. Similar discoveries were being reported from ancient sites across the galaxy. Archaeological teams on dozens of worlds were finding the same thing: ruins that were far too recent, technology that was activating, and genetic traces from an unknown species. The message also contained disturbing news from the edge of Confederation space. Long-range sensors had detected unknown spacecraft in the outer systems. The ships used technology that was familiar yet strange, definitely not from any known Confederation species, but not entirely alien either. "Sir," Krina called out from across the dig site, "I think you need to see this immediately." Zixtal hurried over to where she was working on a section of the main structure. She had uncovered what appeared to be a control panel covered in symbols. But as he looked closer, he realized these symbols were different from the others they had found. "These markings," he said slowly. "They're not like the other ancient writings." "No, sir. They're much simpler. Almost primitive compared to the complex mathematics we found earlier, but look at this." She pointed to a sequence of symbols that seemed to represent numbers. "This counting system, I've seen something like it before." "Where?" "In the databases from first contact missions. Some of the younger species we've encountered use similar numerical representations. But that doesn't make sense. How could primitive species use the same mathematical concepts as the ancients?" Zixtal felt pieces of a puzzle starting to form in his mind. But the picture they created was impossible. If the symbols matched those used by primitive species, and the genetic samples came from an unknown race, and the ruins were too recent to be from the mythical first ones. "Send everything to the Council," he ordered. "All our findings, all the data, everything. Include a priority request for information about any new species detected in Confederation space." "You think the two are connected?" Krina asked. "The ruins and the unknown ships?" "I think we're about to discover that everything we thought we knew about the ancients is wrong," Zixtal replied. "And I have a feeling that's going to change the entire galaxy." As the team prepared their report, the crystalline devices throughout the dig site began humming with increased energy. Whatever was happening, it was accelerating. Across the galaxy, ancient sites were awakening after 50,000 years of silence. The ancients were coming back. But the question that terrified every archaeologist and historian in the Confederation was simple: what if they had never really left? What if they had simply been waiting for the right time to return? The red sun set over Kepler 442b, but the work continued under artificial lights. Dr. Zixtal and his team knew they were racing against time to understand the truth before the galaxy changed forever. The symbols on the walls seemed to mock them, with their simple complexity, holding secrets that could reshape everything they believed about their place in the universe. In the distance, the ancient devices hummed their strange songs, calling out across the void to their sleeping siblings, scattered among the stars. After 50,000 years of silence, the wake-up call had finally begun. Captain Sarah Chen stared at the readings on her display screen and frowned. The energy signatures they were detecting made no sense according to everything she knew about physics. The exploration vessel Endeavour hung in space above New Terra, humanity's newest colony world, but the sensors were picking up something that should not exist. "Run the scan again, Rodriguez," she told her science officer. "Those readings can't be right." Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez worked at her console with practiced efficiency. She had been with the Endeavour for 3 years, and Sarah trusted her judgment completely. But the data she was showing made no logical sense. "Same results, Captain. We're detecting structured energy patterns approximately 2 light-years from our position. The energy output suggests advanced technology, but the signatures don't match anything in our databases." Sarah rubbed her temples. Humanity had been exploring space for less than 2 centuries. They had developed faster than light travel only, 50 years ago, and even that was barely understood technology reverse-engineered from ancient artifacts found on Earth and Mars. The existence of those artifacts had always puzzled human scientists. Someone had visited their solar system thousands of years ago and left behind pieces of incredibly advanced technology. By studying these artifacts, humanity had learned to build fusion reactors, quantum computers, and eventually FTL drives. But they had never encountered the beings who left those gifts behind. Most humans assumed they were long gone, perhaps extinct or evolved beyond physical existence. The artifacts were just mysterious presence from a dead civilization. "Captain," called out Ensign Jackson from the communication station. "I'm detecting incoming transmissions. Multiple sources, all using similar frequency patterns. Can you decode them?" "That's the strange part, ma'am. Our computers are automatically interfacing with the signals. It's like our translation software recognizes the base protocol somehow." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Human translation software was built on principles derived from the ancient artifacts. If their systems were automatically interfacing with these new signals that suggested a connection she did not want to consider. "Put me through to Dr. Vasquez," she ordered. Dr. Elena Vasquez was the Endeavour's xenolinguist and cultural specialist. She had spent years studying the ancient artifacts and developing theories about their creators. If anyone could make sense of this situation, it would be her. Elena arrived on the bridge within minutes, her tablet already displaying linguistic analysis programs. She was a small woman with intense dark eyes and graying hair that she kept tied back in a practical ponytail. "What do we have, Captain?" she asked, immediately getting to work at Jackson's station. "Unknown energy signatures and transmissions that our computers seem to understand. I was hoping you could tell me what that means." Elena's fingers flew across the interface as she analyzed the incoming data. Her expression grew more concerned with each passing minute. Finally, she looked up with worry written across her face. "Captain, these transmission protocols, they're based on the same mathematical principles as our translation software. But that's impossible unless what? Unless whoever is sending these signals uses the same base technology as the artifacts we found on Earth." Before Sarah could respond, the main view screen activated automatically. The image showed a sleek spacecraft unlike anything in human databases. It was large, graceful, and clearly built by a civilization far more advanced than humanity. "This is Ambassador Kethlin of the Galactic Confederation," came a voice through the speakers. The translation was perfect, with no delay or distortion. "We greet the inhabitants of this system and request permission to establish peaceful contact." Sarah exchanged glances with her senior officers. First contact with an alien species was something every explorer dreamed of, but also feared. Humanity's protocols were clear, but they had been written by people who had never actually expected to use them. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Endeavour. We welcome peaceful contact and are prepared to begin diplomatic discussions." "Excellent," Ambassador Kethlin replied. "We have been observing your species for some time and believe you are ready to join the galactic community. We would like to arrange a meeting to discuss your world's integration into the Confederation." The casual assumption that humanity would simply join their organization set Sarah on edge. But she maintained her diplomatic composure as they arranged. for a meeting on New Terra's surface. 3 hours later, Sarah stood in the colony's main conference room watching an alien shuttle land outside. The craft was beautiful in a way that human ships were not, all flowing curves and elegant proportions. It made their own vessels look crude and functional by comparison. Ambassador Kethlin was tall and slender, with pale blue skin and large eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. He moved with fluid grace and spoke in calm, measured tones that the translation system rendered in perfect English. "Your species shows great promise," he said as they sat around the conference table. "We have studied your technological development and are impressed by your rapid progress. Given proper guidance, humans could become valued members of the Confederation within a few centuries." "A few centuries?" Sarah asked. "That seems like a long time." "Not at all," Kethlin replied with what might have been a smile. "Most species require much longer to understand the gifts left by the ancients. Your reverse engineering of their technology has been quite impressive for such a young race." Elena leaned forward. "These ancients, tell us about them." "They were the first intelligent species to achieve interstellar travel," Kethlin explained. "Millions of years ago they spread across the galaxy, leaving behind artifacts and knowledge for younger races to discover. All of our current technology is based on their designs, though we understand only a fraction of their capabilities." "What happened to them?" Elena asked. "They transcended physical existence eons ago. Some say they became beings of pure energy. Others believe they retreated to higher dimensions. All we know for certain is that they left us the tools to build civilization." Sarah noticed Elena's expression growing more troubled as the ambassador spoke. The xenolinguist was studying her tablet intently, comparing data from the conversation with information in their databases. "Ambassador," Elena said slowly, "could you show us some examples of ancient writing? Our scholars are very interested in their language and mathematics." Kethlin activated a holographic display that showed various symbols and equations. "Tuku, Sarah." They looked like complex mathematical formulas in alien script, but Elena's reaction was immediate and alarming. "Oh my God," Elena whispered, staring at the display. "Sarah, we need to talk, privately, right now." Sarah excused them from the meeting, claiming they needed to consult with their superiors on Earth. Kethlin was understanding and suggested they reconvene the following day. Once they were alone in Sarah's quarters, Elena pulled up multiple displays on her workstation. Her hands were shaking as she typed. "Sarah, look at this," she said, bringing up side-by-side comparisons. "These ancient symbols that Kethlin showed us, they're not alien at all." "What do you mean?" "Look." Elena highlighted sections of the ancient writing. "This symbol here represents the number 10, but it's clearly derived from our Arabic numerals. And this mathematical notation, it's based on principles that human mathematicians developed independently." Sarah studied the comparisons Elena was showing her. The similarities were undeniable, but the implications were staggering. "You're saying the ancients were human? I'm saying these ancient symbols are corrupted versions of human writing systems. Look at this sequence. It's clearly derived from Sanskrit, but it's been copied and recopied so many times that it's almost unrecognizable." Elena brought up more examples, showing how various ancient symbols could be traced back to human languages, mathematical systems, and even binary code. "But that's impossible," Sarah said. "Humans have only been in space for 2 centuries. We're the newcomers to the galaxy." "Are we?" Elena asked. "What if we're not? What if humanity reached the stars before, thousands of years ago, and something happened that forced us to start over?" The evidence on Elena's screen was overwhelming. The ancient technology that every galactic civilization revered was based on human designs. The mathematical principles that seemed so advanced to other species were concepts that human children learned in school. "Elena, if you're right about this, then every species in this galactic confederation has been using our technology for thousands of years without knowing it. They think they're the advanced civilizations, and we're the primitives. But the truth is exactly the opposite." Sarah sank into her chair as the full implications hit her. Humanity was not a young species lucky enough to find ancient artifacts. They were the ancients returning to a galaxy that had forgotten who had built its foundations. What do we do with this information? We need to be very careful, Elena said. If the Confederation learns that humans are the source of all their technology, it could cause panic. Some species might worship us as gods. Others might see us as a threat to be eliminated. Sarah thought about Ambassador Kethlin and his casual assumption that humanity would need centuries of guidance to understand ancient technology. The irony was almost overwhelming. We need to contact Earth immediately, she decided. This is bigger than first contact. This changes everything we thought we knew about human history and our place in the galaxy. As Elena prepared the encrypted transmission to Earth, Sarah stared out at the alien ship still sitting on their landing pad. Tomorrow, they would have to sit across from Ambassador Kethlin again, pretending to be the primitive species he believed them to be. But the truth was starting to emerge. Humanity had been to the stars before. They had built the technology that now powered galactic civilization. And for reasons lost to history, they had been forced to retreat to their homeworld and start over. Now they were back. The question was, what would the galaxy do when it discovered that the ancients had returned? Dr. Elena Vasquez had not slept in 36 hours. Her quarters aboard the Endeavour were covered with displays showing linguistic analysis, historical databases, and mathematical comparisons. Every piece of evidence pointed to the same impossible conclusion: humanity were the ancients. The encrypted transmission from Earth had arrived 3 hours ago, and the response from the colonial administration was exactly what she had expected: shock, disbelief, and demands for more proof. But Elena had more proof than anyone could want. She had spent the last day and a half tracing ancient symbols back to their human origins, and the pattern was undeniable. Captain Chen to Dr. Vasquez. Please report to the bridge immediately. Elena sighed and gathered her most important data files. She had requested this meeting to present her complete findings to the senior staff. It was time to show them exactly how deep this mystery went. The bridge was crowded when she arrived. Captain Chen had assembled all department heads, along with several other officers. Ambassador Kethlin was also present, having requested to observe their primitive decision-making process. Elena felt sick knowing that this alien diplomat thought he was watching children play with toys their parents had left behind. Dr. Vasquez, Captain Chen began, please share your findings with the group. Elena activated the main view screen and began her presentation. She started with simple examples: ancient numerical systems that were clearly derived from human mathematics, geometric patterns that matched Earth architectural principles, and energy equations that human physicists had discovered independently. As you can see, she explained, what the Confederation calls ancient technology shows clear connections to human scientific and cultural development. But this is just the beginning. She pulled up more complex comparisons. Ancient star charts that matched constellations visible from Earth. Genetic encoding systems that followed patterns discovered by human biologists. Even artistic motifs that appeared in human cultures across the globe. Ambassador Kethlin watched with growing confusion. Dr. Vasquez, these similarities are interesting, but surely they represent convergent evolution. All intelligent species eventually discover similar mathematical principles. That's what I thought at first, Elena replied. But the evidence goes much deeper than convergent evolution. She activated a new display showing ancient text samples alongside human writing systems. This ancient symbol represents water, but if you look carefully, it's clearly derived from the Chinese character for water, just heavily stylized. And this symbol for fire comes from Sanskrit. This mathematical notation is based on Arabic numerals that have been copied and recopied until they're almost unrecognizable. The bridge fell silent as Elena continued her presentation. She showed how ancient architectural principles matched building techniques used in human cultures throughout history. She demonstrated how their energy manipulation systems were based on theories that human scientists had developed in the 21st century. The conclusion is inescapable, Elena said finally. The ancients were not some mysterious alien species. They were humans. Advanced humans from our own past who achieved interstellar civilization and then disappeared. Commander Rodriguez spoke up first. But how is that possible? Our historical records only go back a few thousand years, and they show continuous human civilization on Earth. That's the key question, Elena replied. Something happened to reset human civilization, some catastrophic event that forced us to abandon our colonies and retreat to Earth. Our ancestors lost their technology and had to rebuild from scratch. Ambassador Kethlin was staring at the display with an expression of growing horror. This is impossible. The ancients existed millions of years ago. Your species has barely achieved spaceflight. According to our carbon dating, most ancient sites are between 40 and 60,000 years old, Elena said gently. That's well within the time frame of modern human development. But that would mean... Kethlin's voice trailed off as the implications hit him. It means that every technology your civilization uses was originally developed by humans, Elena confirmed. Your faster-than-light drives, your energy weapons, your quantum computers, all of it is based on human designs that you've been copying for thousands of years without understanding who created them. The silence on the bridge was deafening. Elena could see the shock on every face as her words sank in. Ambassador Kethlin looked like his entire worldview was crumbling. Our entire civilization, he whispered. Everything we've achieved. We're not advanced beings. We're children playing with toys we don't understand. Captain Chen leaned forward. Ambassador, we need you to understand that this doesn't change our desire for peaceful relations. We're not here to claim superiority or demand submission. We just want to understand what happened to our ancestors. Your ancestors? Kethlin repeated numbly. The beings we've worshipped as gods for millennia. They were humans. Elena felt sympathy for the alien diplomat. She could imagine how devastating it would be to learn that everything your species had accomplished was built on the ruins of another civilization. But there was more to reveal. There's something else, she said, pulling up new data. We've been analyzing the energy signatures that brought us into contact. Ancient installations across the galaxy are awakening. They're responding to our presence. She showed readings from dozens of worlds where human exploration teams were operating. In every case, ancient technology had suddenly become active when humans arrived in the system. The installations recognize us, she explained. They're coded to respond to human genetic markers, voice patterns, and probably other biological signatures. That's why they've been dormant for so long. They were waiting for humans to return. Commander Rodriguez asked the question everyone was thinking. If the ancients were humans, what happened to them? Why did they disappear? I don't know, Elena admitted. But I think we're about to find out. If ancient installations are awakening across the galaxy, they might contain records of what forced humanity to retreat. Ambassador Kethlin stood up shakily. I need to contact the Confederation Council immediately. This information, it changes everything. Every species in the galaxy needs to know the truth. With respect, Ambassador, Captain Chen said, we think that might not be wise, at least not immediately. Why not? Elena answered. Think about how different species might react to this news. Some might welcome humans as the rightful inheritors of ancient technology, but others might see us as a threat. If we're the original creators of all galactic technology, what does that mean for current power structures? The reality was sobering. The Galactic Confederation was built on the assumption that all species were equal inheritors of ancient wisdom. If humans were revealed as the original creators, it would destabilize the entire political and social order. The Kron hegemony, Kethlin said quietly. They would never accept human superiority. They consider themselves the galaxy's dominant military power. That's exactly what we're worried about, Captain Chen replied. We need time to understand the full situation before making any announcements. Elena pulled up another display. There's one more thing. We've detected similar energy signatures to what brought the Endeavor here. Other human ships are making contact with Confederation vessels across the galaxy. This isn't an isolated incident. How many human ships? At least a dozen, probably more. Earth launched a major exploration program 5 years ago. Human crews are scattered across this entire sector of the galaxy. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just making first contact. They were returning to their ancient territory on multiple fronts simultaneously. Every contact would potentially reveal the same truth that Elena had discovered. We need to coordinate with these other ships, Captain Chen decided. If they're discovering the same things we are, we need to share information and develop a unified approach. Ambassador Kethlin was reviewing his own databases, cross-referencing Elena's evidence with Confederation records. His expression grew more troubled with each discovery. The genetic samples from Kepler 442b, he said suddenly. The archaeological team found traces of an unknown species, but if your theory is correct, they're human genetic markers, Elena confirmed. Probably from the original human colonists 50,000 years ago. This explains so much, Kethlin continued. The mathematical progression inconsistencies, the activation of dormant technology, even the symbolic similarities different species have noticed, but never could explain. Elena felt a mixture of excitement and dread. The truth was finally emerging, but the consequences could be enormous. Humanity had once been the galaxy's dominant civilization. They had built the foundations that every current species depended on, and now they were returning to find their children. Species had grown up, believing themselves to be the adults. What do we do now? Commander Rodriguez asked. Captain Chen stood up. We gather more evidence, we contact other human ships, we learn everything we can about what happened to the original human civilization, and we prepare for the possibility that revealing this truth might change the galaxy forever. Ambassador Kethlin looked up from his displays. Captain, I have served the Confederation for 40 years. I have negotiated with dozens of species and helped integrate them into galactic society. But I have never faced anything like this. None of us have, Captain Chen replied. But we'll face it together, human and alien working toward the same goal, understanding the truth and finding a path forward that benefits everyone. As the meeting broke up, Elena stared at the data scrolling across her screens. Somewhere in the galaxy were records of what had happened to humanity's first galactic civilization. Somewhere were the answers to how and why they had been forced to retreat to Earth and start over, but those answers might come with a price. The galaxy had spent 50,000 years building civilizations on human foundations, learning that truth could either unite the species in wonder or tear them apart in fear and resentment. Humanity had returned to the stars. The question now was whether the galaxy was ready to welcome back its forgotten ancestors. The emergency session of the Galactic Confederation Council had been called within hours of Ambassador Kethlin's initial report. Representatives from 47 species gathered in the massive chamber on Central Station, their voices creating a cacophony of fear, excitement, and disbelief. Chancellor Vorthak of the Andromedian Union called for order, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. As the elected leader of the Confederation, he had seen many crises, but nothing like this. Fellow delegates, he announced, we are here to discuss the most significant discovery in galactic history. Ambassador Kethlin, please present your findings. The chamber fell silent as Kethlin stepped to the central podium. His normally composed demeanor showed cracks of the stress he had endured over the past week since learning the truth about humanity. Honored colleagues, he began, what I am about to share will challenge everything we believe about our civilization and our place in the galaxy. He activated the holographic displays, showing the evidence Dr. Vasquez had compiled. The similarities between ancient technology and human development. The genetic traces found at archaeological sites. The activation of dormant installations when humans arrived in various systems. The conclusion is inescapable, Kethlin said. The beings we have revered as the ancients were not some transcended alien species. They were humans. Advanced humans from our own past who built the foundations of everything we call civilization. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Some delegates leaped to their feet in outrage. Others sat in stunned silence. A few began speaking rapidly into their communication devices, no doubt alerting their governments to this earth-shattering news. Representative Sektar of the Regelian Assembly was the first to speak. This is impossible. Our civilization has existed for over 10,000 years. We developed our technology through careful study of ancient artifacts. Technology that was originally human, Kethlin replied calmly. Your species, like all of ours, has been using degraded copies of human designs. You're saying we're primitives? Demanded General Krexthor of the Kron hegemony, his scaled face flushed with anger. That everything we've achieved is meaningless? Not meaningless, Kethlin said, but built on foundations you didn't create. The debate that followed was chaotic and emotional. Some species reacted with wonder, viewing this as a miraculous return of the gods they had unknowingly worshipped. Others responded with fury, refusing to accept that their proud civilizations were based on borrowed technology. But the most dangerous reaction came from the military powers, particularly the Kron hegemony. General Krexthor and his allies saw humanity not as returning ancestors, but as a threat to the existing order. If these humans truly created our technology, Krexthor growled, then they possess knowledge we can only imagine. They could make our weapons obsolete, our defenses useless. This is not a reunion, it's an invasion. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, human exploration teams were making similar discoveries. Captain Sarah Chen had established communication with 12 other human vessels, each reporting the same pattern of awakening ancient technology and confused alien responses. On Earth, the revelation had caused its own crisis. President Maria Santos convened an emergency session of the Global Council, bringing together representatives from every nation and colony world. We're facing a situation that none of our protocols anticipated, she announced to the Assembly. Our people across the galaxy are discovering that we're not newcomers to the stars. We're returning home. Dr. James Park, Earth's leading expert on ancient artifacts, had been studying the reports from various exploration teams. His preliminary analysis was staggering. Based on the data we're receiving, human civilization reached its peak approximately 50,000 years ago, he explained. We had colonies on thousands of worlds, technology that makes our current capabilities look primitive, and a level of scientific understanding that we're only beginning to rediscover. What happened to them? Asked Director Chen Wei of the Mars Colonial Authority. That's what we need to find out. Something forced humanity to abandon their galactic civilization and retreat to Earth. Something so catastrophic that we lost almost all records of our previous achievements. Religious leaders across Earth were grappling with the theological implications. The discovery that humanity had once been a galactic superpower challenged many established beliefs about human origins and destiny. Father Martinez of the Vatican issued a carefully worded statement. This revelation does not diminish humanity's spiritual journey. Rather, it suggests that our destiny among the stars was always part of a divine plan. But not everyone on Earth was pleased with the news. Protests erupted in several major cities, with groups demanding that humanity abandon space exploration entirely rather than risk repeating whatever catastrophe had befallen their ancestors. Back on the Endeavour, Captain Chen was coordinating with the other human ships when their communications were interrupted by an urgent transmission from Ambassador Kethlin. Captain Chen, you need to evacuate your people immediately. The Kron hegemony has convinced several species that humanity represents an existential threat. They're mobilizing military forces. What kind of forces? Chen asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. A fleet of over 300 warships is en route to human-controlled systems. They intend to eliminate what they call the ancient threat before you can reclaim your full capabilities. The irony was not lost on Chen. The Kron were using weapons originally designed by humans to attack the descendants of those same humans. But irony would not protect her crew or the colonists on New Terra. How much time do we have? 6 hours at most. But Captain, there's something else. Ancient installations throughout Kron space have begun activating. Their military commanders are panicking because their own weapons are becoming unreliable. Dr. Vasquez, who had been monitoring the conversation, looked up from her displays with excitement. Sarah, the installations aren't just awakening randomly. They're responding to the threat against humanity. What do you mean? The ancient technology isn't just recognizing us as humans. It's recognizing us as the species it was designed to protect. The defensive systems our ancestors built are coming online. As if to prove her point, alerts began sounding throughout the ship. Their sensors were detecting massive energy buildups throughout the system. Ancient installations that had been dormant for millennia were suddenly blazing with power. On New Terra's surface, colonists reported that strange structures were rising from beneath the ground. Crystalline towers and geometric platforms that no one had known existed were emerging and beginning to emit protective energy fields. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Rodriguez from the science station, "I'm reading similar activations throughout human space. It's like the entire galaxy's defensive network is waking up." The implications were staggering. Humanity's ancestors had not just built technology for exploration and development. They had created a galaxy-spanning defense system designed to protect human colonies from threats, and that system was recognizing the current crisis. Ambassador Kethlin's voice crackled through the communications. "Captain, you need to know that not all species are joining the Kron offensive. The Zephyrian Archaeological Consortium is demanding that humanity be protected as a galactic treasure. Several other scientific organizations are taking similar positions. What about the Confederation government? Chancellor Vorthiak is trying to maintain neutrality, but the military factions are gaining influence. The discovery that humans created our technology has divided the galaxy into three camps: those who want to worship you, those who want to destroy you, and those who want to study you." Captain Chen made a difficult decision. "Ambassador, we're going to need your help. If ancient defensive systems are activating, we need to understand how to control them. Otherwise, this situation could escalate into a galaxy-wide war." "I'll do everything I can," Kethlin promised. "But Captain, you should know that some of the ancient installations are already targeting Kron ships. Your ancestors' defensive systems don't seem interested in proportional responses." As if summoned by his words, new alerts flooded the Endeavor's sensors. Ancient weapon platforms throughout the system were powering up, their targeting systems locking onto the approaching Kron fleet. Energy readings suggested weapons capable of destroying entire fleets with single shots. Dr. Vasquez stared at her displays in horror and amazement. "Sarah, I don't think we understand the full scope of what our ancestors built. This isn't just a defensive network. It's a galaxy-controlling superweapon system." The approaching Kron fleet had no idea what they were flying into. They thought they were attacking a primitive species that had stumbled onto a few ancient artifacts. Instead, they were about to face the full defensive might of the civilization that had built the technology they depended on. Humanity had returned to the galaxy as lost children seeking their heritage. But the galaxy was about to learn that these children had inherited the power of gods. The question now was whether anyone, human or alien, could control what was about to be unleashed. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath as 50,000 years of dormant power began to awaken. The ancients had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the command deck of what had once been called Installation Omega-7, but was now revealing its true identity as humanity's ancient galactic command center. The crystalline walls hummed with power that had been dormant for 50,000 years, and holographic displays showed the positions of fleets, planets, and installations across the entire galaxy. The transformation had been incredible to witness. When the Kron hegemony fleet arrived to destroy what they thought was a primitive human colony, they found themselves facing defensive systems beyond their comprehension. Ancient weapon platforms had emerged from planets, asteroids, and empty space itself, creating an impenetrable barrier around human territories. But what happened next surprised everyone, including Sarah herself. The defensive systems had not attacked. Instead, they had simply waited. "Admiral," called out Dr. Vasquez from her new station at the installation's central console. "I'm receiving communications from the Kron fleet. They're requesting permission to withdraw." "Permission?" Sarah asked. "From us?" "No, ma'am. From the installation itself. Their fleet commanders are receiving direct communications from the ancient defense network asking them to state their intentions. The irony was almost overwhelming. The mighty Kron hegemony, whose military had dominated the galaxy for centuries, was being politely interrogated by systems they had never known existed. Ambassador Kethlin, who had become humanity's unofficial liaison with the Confederation, shook his head in amazement. "Admiral, I've been monitoring communications across the galaxy. Similar situations are occurring everywhere humans have made contact. The ancient installations aren't acting aggressively. They're acting like teachers," Sarah finished, "like they're trying to educate rather than destroy." The past week had brought revelation after revelation. As more ancient installations came online, humanity began to understand the true scope of their heritage. Their ancestors had not just built a galactic civilization, they had built a galactic protection and education system. Dr. Park's voice came through the communication system from Earth. "Admiral, we've made a breakthrough in translating the Central Archives. You need to hear this." Sarah activated the connection to Earth, where humanity's best scientists and historians had been working around the clock to understand their rediscovered past. "What did you find, Dr. Park?" "The reason for the Great Silence. Why humanity retreated from the galaxy 50,000 years ago. It wasn't a disaster or an invasion. It was a choice." The holographic display activated, showing historical records that had been locked away in the installation's deepest archives. The images showed a thriving galactic civilization with humans at the center, teaching and guiding dozens of younger species. "According to these records," Dr. Park continued, "humanity had achieved everything they set out to accomplish. They had built a peaceful galaxy, eliminated scarcity, and created a network of species working together. But they realized they had also created a problem." "What kind of problem?" Sarah asked. "Dependency. The younger species had become so reliant on human guidance that they weren't developing their own cultures and technologies. They were becoming permanent children, looking to humanity for every decision and innovation." The truth was sobering. Humanity's ancestors had not been forced to retreat. They had chosen to step back and allow the galaxy to grow up without them. So, they built the installation network as a backup system, Dr. Park explained. Automated teachers and protectors that would only activate if the galaxy faced a genuine crisis or if humanity ever returned. Then they withdrew to Earth and deliberately reset their own civilization. "They chose to start over?" Dr. Vasquez asked in amazement. "They chose to give the galaxy a chance to develop independently while preserving human knowledge in case it was ever needed again. The Great Silence wasn't a catastrophe. It was an act of love." Sarah felt tears in her eyes as the full scope of her ancestors' sacrifice became clear. They had given up a galactic empire to allow other species to find their own paths to greatness. "Admiral," Ambassador Kethlin said quietly, "this explains so much about why the installations are behaving as they are. They're not weapons of conquest. They're tools of guidance, activated because the galaxy is facing its first major crisis since the retreat." The crisis he referred to was real and growing. The revelation of humanity's true heritage had divided galactic civilization into warring factions. Some species demanded human leadership, others rejected human authority entirely, and a few, like the Kron hegemony, sought to eliminate humanity before they could reclaim their full power. "What do the archives say about resolving this situation?" Sarah asked. Dr. Park consulted his displays. "There are protocols for exactly this scenario. Procedures for reintegrating humanity into galactic civilization without disrupting the independence that other species have achieved." "Show me." The holographic display filled with complex diagrams and text. Sarah studied them carefully, recognizing the wisdom of her ancestors even across 50,000 years. "The Nexus Protocol," she read aloud. "A system for sharing knowledge and authority while preserving species autonomy." Dr. Vasquez looked up from her own analysis. "It's brilliant. Instead of humanity reclaiming control, the protocol establishes a true partnership. Each species contributes their unique developments while gaining access to the full ancient archives. But only if they choose to participate," Sarah noted. The system includes provisions for species that want to remain independent. The beauty of the protocol was its flexibility. Species that wanted human guidance could have it, those that preferred independence could maintain it, and those that wanted to contribute to a larger galactic community could do so as equals rather than subjects. There's one more thing, Dr. Park added. The archives contain warnings about something called the Void Devourers, entities from outside our reality that periodically threaten the galaxy. The installation network was built primarily to defend against them. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Are they active now? The sensors are detecting reality distortions at the galaxy's edge. The threat that originally necessitated the ancient defensive network is returning. The timing was not coincidental. The installation network had awakened because humanity had returned, but also because their ancient enemy was stirring once again. Admiral, called out Lieutenant Torres from the communication station. I'm receiving a transmission from Chancellor Vorthak of the Confederation. He's requesting immediate discussions about implementing something called the Nexus Protocol. Sarah smiled. The Confederation's leaders had apparently reached the same conclusions about the galaxy's future. It was time to move forward together. Open a channel, she ordered. Chancellor, this is Admiral Chen. We're ready to discuss the future. Chancellor, Vorthak's image appeared on the main display. The Andromedian leader looked tired but determined. Admiral, our species have reached a crossroads. We can continue fighting about the past, or we can work together to face the future. We agree completely, Chancellor. The Nexus Protocol provides a framework for cooperation while respecting everyone's autonomy. Then let us begin. The galaxy has been without its teachers for 50,000 years. Perhaps it's time for the lesson to resume. Over the following months, the Nexus Protocol was implemented across the galaxy. Humanity shared the archives of ancient knowledge, but as teachers rather than rulers. Each species contributed their own unique discoveries and perspectives, creating a true galactic community. The Kron hegemony, after initial resistance, became some of humanity's strongest allies when they learned about the Void Devourers. Their military expertise, combined with reactivated ancient defensive systems, created an unprecedented level of galactic security. The Zephyrian Archaeological Consortium worked with human historians to uncover the full history of galactic civilization, revealing stories of cooperation and achievement that had been forgotten for millennia. Even species that chose to remain independent found benefits in the new arrangement. The ancient installations provided protection and emergency assistance without demanding political submission. Sarah often stood in the command center of the installation, watching displays that showed the galaxy at peace for the first time in centuries. The younger species had indeed grown up during humanity's absence, developing unique cultures and technologies that enriched the entire galactic community. Admiral, Dr. Vasquez said one day as they reviewed the latest reports, do you think our ancestors would be proud of what we've accomplished? Sarah considered the question while watching ships from dozens of species working together to strengthen the defenses against the Void Devourers. Human crews worked alongside aliens who had once feared and resented them, building something greater than any single species could achieve alone. I think they would be amazed, she said finally. They gave up everything to allow the galaxy to grow, and when we returned, we found that their sacrifice had created something beautiful. The galaxy had indeed grown up in humanity's absence, and when the ancients finally returned home, they found children who had become worthy partners in building a future none of them could have imagined alone. The great silence was over. The teachers had returned. But this time, everyone in the galaxy had something to learn and something to teach. Humanity had come home to discover that the greatest gift they could give was not their ancient knowledge, but their willingness to share it as equals among the stars.